Asylum Justin Melamar for Revolution News here at Toronto. Well, folks, I'm here at the campaign office of Chris Saccoccia, also known as Chris Kai, where he launched his first campaign trail stop here in Scarborough. And in the upcoming months, he will be going around the city of Toronto. Not only that, he will be doing it in upcoming months, but also he will do it in the upcoming weeks, where he will be campaigning all around the city. And one of course here, folks, is that yes, I had the chance to interview him and ask him very important questions, including what he will do to Dr. Eileen De Villa, and also what his message to the city councilors that are going to be pushing the green agenda. While also here, folks, is that yes, I also asked him about his leadership, and also here, folks, is not only that, I've asked him about what he will do to those electric buses that being bought in by the federal government for the city of Toronto, but Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, where she overly bragged about those electric buses. But of course, here's what Chris Kai has to say about it. Check it out here, folks. Folks, I'm here with Chris Kai. So first of all, Chris, is that this is a very important question. Is that what would you do when you become mayor? I mean, what would you do to Dr. Eileen De Villa once you become the mayor of the city?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So what would you do if you become mayor to Dr. Eileen De Villa? Like, what would you do to her?
Well, I'd try to have her and all the other public health officials investigated for what I believe to be crimes against humanity. I think they all knew better, and they were all giving us decisions based on political science and not actual science, and they weren't doing what was best for the health and safety of families. They were doing what was best for the control factor of the government. And I believe that's why she resigned, because she saw this type of investigation and possible prosecution in her future. And I believe that you're going to see a lot more resignations in my administration as we go around and we start to poke holes and try to find this corruption and other illegal wrongdoings that have happened over the last 3 years.
And speaking of corruption here, Chris, is that what's your message to those corrupt police officers that won't resign even though that you give them this type of warning?
Well, it's going to be very simple. Anybody who acts outside of their actual structured duties and is not being an integral member of the community will be outed. They will be disciplined. They will be made an example of, and they will either be taken off the force, they will be demoted, or they will be otherwise restrained in a way where they will not be able to impact the community in a negative way until they've realized the error of their ways and actually become to be a public servant again. The one thing politicians and police officers all have in common, they're public servants. And that's going to be the hallmark of my administration. Everybody that works for the government is going to remember that again. They're not a government worker, they're not a provincial worker, they're not a municipal worker. They are a public servant. They are there to serve the public. And that's going to be paramount in my administration.
And the other part here, Chris, is that what do you say to those city councilors that will be trying to push this green agenda forward?
The green agenda is not going anywhere when I become mayor. 15-minute city, personal carbon allowance, digital ID, digital currency, all that is going to be completely blocked. We are only going to have high-density, large-scale residential production with large underground parking to create an infrastructure for future expansion of personal automobiles, not the future extermination of personal automobiles. We're going to actually have a real progressive city, and we're still going to meet the environmental needs, because we're going to do things like increase the TTC with a new public and private partnership where we're going to get private investment to build new TTC lines that's going to make Toronto more accessible to all. It's going to take away the traffic congestion on the street, and it's going to address their so-called green agenda in a way that benefits the people without having them sacrifice their lifestyle or way of life. That we can manage the climate, we can manage the environment without having a negative impact on people, without having to make them sacrifice what they love and what they're used to. Not in my administration.
And one last part here, Chris, is that we've seen earlier this week the Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland virtue signaling about the electric car on TTC. So, what would you do to all TTC green electric cars? Are you gonna keep them or are you gonna get rid of them?
I would make them buy them back from Toronto. People don't understand how much money she just stole. She spent something like $700 million on 340 buses. That's over $2.1 million per bus. Why? Because they're electric. When they can get a super clean diesel bus for $500,000 or $550,000, that's 4 times the amount of money that they're spending on these stupid electric buses that the batteries cost more damage to the environment to produce than a diesel bus, and then it has to be stored in a hazardous waste facility. And these batteries need to be replaced every 5 years at the cost of $250,000. So not only did they put us on the hook for $700 million when it could have been like $150 million for normal buses and wasted over $500 million, now we're going to have millions and millions of dollars in upkeep and maintenance to keep these stupid things on the road. So and guess what? Who plays the lion's share of those buses? It's going to be the people of Toronto, coming right out of our taxpayer pockets. I don't think so.
Alright, thank you for your time, Chris.
My pleasure, brother.
So there you have it there, folks. So you can just see it here that he is not profoundly happy with it. And of course he will be doing things here. And he also sort of sent a big message to those corrupt police officers that won't do their job and won't resign even though they've been given a warning. He said that he will have them investigated, persecuted, and fired. And of course, when I asked him about the city councilors going to be pushing about the green agenda, well, he had also a say on that, which you have seen it in my interview with him. But, well, of course, this is just like the beginning of his campaign where he will be going around the city of Toronto. And of course, this is part of his effort to become the next mayor of the city of Toronto and win the Toronto Mayoral by-election. For Revolution News, I'm Asylum Justin Bellamore. Hey there, folks, please support my independent journalism by going to donorbox.org/Revolution Freedom Reports. That's donorbox.org/Revolution Freedom Reports. And of course, if you can kick in a buck or two, that will be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.